This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Ian, the radioactive baby, pays a visit.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that's kind of like Immaculate Conception, but worse. I am Gip, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host, Dr. Izix.
Hi!
And this week we get to start Season 2, which there's some debate. A lot of people think it is the worst season, but it's still an improvement over Season 1. There's good episodes in this one, though. You get to some good stuff now.
Yeah, I would say that, in fact, though this episode overall is, well, kind of crap, there is actually some really good stuff that goes on in this, kind of with the early parts of the episode specifically. Because we get, some nice, this is how things have changed. We've maybe updated or expanded our sets a little bit, the lighting's slightly better. People got maybe some better looking costumes or changes up there, and all these little things that are just kind of like, yeah, it's just a little bit more shiny.
Yeah, we're starting to introduce the stuff that people remember as Next Generation, to the point where if you go back and watch the first season, you keep having to remind yourself that yes, it did change significantly. It's still not fully found its feet, but it's getting there. Yes. Season 3 is when you get the full on. Of course, this is what Next Generation was always going to be.
I guess for this I guess transition sort of period here, we are getting settled in, but there's still so much that is kind of, I guess, new at this particular episode that it's kind of like a blast of fresh air, kind of.
Some of it, yeah.
Yes. And then the episode happens, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, this episode I cannot believe they started a season with.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Do you want to run your audience away? Because this is how you do that.
I kind of see, for reasons that we'll get into in a second, I see why they needed to do something with a slight medical focus to introduce some stuff, but this is still, I mean, for some reason people keep thinking this is a good idea, and it's never a good idea.
I know Star Trek, the original series, kind of kicked off with, McCoy being a regular character, and so it's kind of traditional, a lot of Star Trek, to have, a medical officer who is a regular character, and it's, to the point where that's shown up in other sci-fi as well, and sometimes it just kind of begs the question of, but why? Because you kind of have to have some number of episodes that are for sure going to be medical dramas as a result, and this one is sort of a medical drama at some portions, but if you're going to have a medical drama, there's much better ones throughout the series than this, even in this season. They could have done the one with the genetically engineered people that are like virusing everyone. Spoilers.
Yeah, and it's better. It's not great, but it is better.
It's like, all right, we could have that, or could have the bit where Picard's going to do, get a replacement heart, and there's some heart surgery drama that's going on, and that would be a great way to Picard's like kind of shy about getting his surgery on with on the ship, because he's supposed to be the stern captain sort of person, and with having a new doctor on, it could be very much a case of I'm not entirely sure I'm quite comfortable with someone who doesn't really know me doing this on the ship, especially if they're under my command. That could have some interesting dynamics to it, but instead we get this one.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have trusted them to do Tapestry this early in this season. They would have screwed it up.
Well, there's a different heart one that actually happens later this season, I believe. But it's what sets up for Tapestry, actually.
Yeah, that one isn't as great.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have started with that one, but that's such a Wesley episode.
Yes.
Anyway, this episode, I should say, is called The Child. First episode of season 2. Written by Jaron Summer and John Polvey. Polvey was the first associate producer for Star Trek The Motion Picture, so they've showed up before. Mm-hmm. And Summer wrote for things like The Incredible Hulk, Buck Rogers, Miami Vice, all kinds of stuff, and did several novels and short series. So they've been around, but not a major person in this yet.
Yes, they even wrote for Star Trek Phase 2, which
this episode spawned from Phase 2. During this era, there was a lot of reused scripts because they wrote a lot of stuff for Phase 2, which was then canceled, folded into the movies. We talked about that before. Mm-hmm. And some of the episode ideas got taken into the second season because they needed ideas. There were writer strikes happening. They needed to just here's half a script. Let's go.
Yeah, just kind of copy paste some things around here, and we'll have some things we could just sort of wing it, I guess, and we'll have plenty of concern looking at things. Yeah.
I mean, we can compare and contrast later once we've looked at this episode, because it wouldn't make any sense to do it before. But it's kind of worse. The Phase 2 script sounds worse.
Ooh, man.
We do have some guest stars to get into because Season 2, we changed a few things. Mm-hmm. So we've got 2 actual guest stars. They're kind of small parts on this one. We've got...
Call Meanie.
Yeah. Call Meanie. Again. We're just going to list him as main cast at this point because he shows up more and more and more often.
Yes.
So we've got Seymour Castell, who's a veteran actor, as Hester Delt. Some weird names in this thing. He's a prolific actor. He's been in 200 films and TV shows, 200 plus. So
a good number, yes. It's oh yes, he was also on the regular show and something called The Algerian and ER and Main Street and Lonesome Jim and and so on and so forth.
Yeah. One of his first roles was in the 1968 movie Faces that earned him an Academy Award nomination, and he's just been in stuff since.
Yeah, this person is apparently pretty good at acting. Let's keep hiring.
And R.J. Williams is playing Ian, who's a child actor best known for soap operas like General Hospital and shows like Magnum P.I. and Full House.
Are they still acting?
I didn't bother to look, apparently.
I believe so. They were at SIP or... wait, no, that's executive producer. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, a lot of people who were child actors went on to behind-the-scenes stuff, probably when they got acne.
Now, last thing they apparently were in was in 2013, a music video. But in terms of mainstream acting, it seems like they stopped around 1994. So I was in Saved by the Bell, the new class for an episode. So that's a thing.
And we have a couple of character changes. Mm-hmm. See, Call Me is in my notes here. You just jumped the gun. He's down here in the cast changes. Gates McFadden was replaced through who knows why, probably sexism, maybe fights. No one's got a full-on coalesced version of what happened.
Yes, so. And most of them sound terrible no matter how it's being pitched. So yeah.
So now we have Deanna Mulder as Dr. Catherine Pulaski. She previously appeared in 2 episodes of the original series, Return to Tomorrow, and is there in truth no beauty? I hate that episode name. Is there in truth no beauty? It's like a tongue twister. I should be saying it to warm up.
Yes, you viewers of the original series or listeners of the show may recall that she played a character who was Miranda Jones, that one, I think? Mm-hmm. The blind lady? Yeah. And there was the Organians and other cool stuff like that. And not the Organians, Medusans, there we go. If you look at them, you lose your mind and stuff. And, that's a plot point. And Also, the Medusan in Prodigy, and that's kind of cool. Anyway.
Yeah, it keeps causing people to lose their minds, and that's a plot point.
Yes, and so, she's back for the season, is taking the doctor role, and, I know some folks, rather don't like her because she's mean to Data. But
yeah, she's very obviously supposed to bring back that McCoy vibe.
Yes.
Which was racist then and is racist now, and it makes her just come off as kind of mean and abrasive a lot of the time.
Yes, and instead of being against the logical Vulcans, it's against the logical android. And I guess this episode's kind of the time they most butt heads, I guess. But there are other times during the season where it's like, wow, you're just kind of like being a dick to him.
Yeah, and then sometimes she's just like their old friends. They cannot decide how to write her as part of the problem.
Which, sometimes happens when you get, character change outs like this. Other times you should know better, so,
We also have the debut of Whoopi Goldberg in her continuing role as Guinan. She shows up for the entire rest of the series, on and off. She had made attempts to get on the show during the first season because she was inspired to pursue acting by Nicole Nichols in original series. The producers did not believe that an Academy Award-nominated movie star wanted to be on their stupid sci-fi show.
But it's like, no, let me on, guys. And they're like, what? Are you
So
serious?
at a certain point, she personally called the producers and went, "Get me on this show, damn it."
And they're like, okay. Yeah, and if for some reason you're not familiar with Whoopi Goldberg, she's been in a little bit of everything. So, take that, list of, 300 movies and just kind of increase it slowly until you get everything else. Like Monkey Bone or Algeria or like a whole bunch of Saturday Night Live and Ghost of Mississippi, Fatal Beauty, Dolly, Ghosts, Sister Act 2, Sister Act 3 with a vengeance. Wait, is there a Sister Act? Yeah, I don't think there is one. Theodore Rex, and so forth and so forth.
Yeah, when she got to play a cop next to an animated dinosaur. Animatronic dinosaur. It wasn't really animated. Would have been better if it was animated.
Yes, The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Madeline, my first fire Madeline. Something called Star Trek Nemesis. Oh, wait.
And then, of course, this is when Cole Meany gets more regular character and when he starts to be credited with an actual name. Mm-hmm. This is the first time that his name shows up.
He is now the transporter chief.
He's still called Transporter Chief at this point. This season is when they start calling him O'Brien. I'm going to keep calling him O'Brien because we know that. According to interviews with him, he didn't know he was getting a better character until one day he just showed up and his lines had changed to say O'Brien instead of Transporter Chief.
Wait, people actually know who I am? I know who I am? Wow.
And finally, this episode marks the first appearance of Riker's beard, played by Jonathan Frakes' beard, to become a staple of the show, except for a brief hiatus in Star Trek Insurrection.
Indeed, and it will, start to grant him more and more powers that will culminate when it's finally starts going gray. So,
Apparently, for this season, they asked him to come into makeup with a full beard grown. And then they shaved off bits, and then when they'd gone too far, they spirit gummed some of it back on until they got to the Riker shape that they wanted. There was just a committee of people standing around shaving his beard and gluing hair back and going like, no, this side needs a bit more.
Excellent. I think that's perhaps an important moment in Star Trek history.
Yeah.
So episode.
Episode.
Who
So much
dreading
stuff
it?
to do between seasons.
Yes. So, and plus we're kind of dreading this one, so it's fine if we just kind of meander for a little bit longer.
Well, I'm going to be completely honest. I watched this episode twice and then read an entire transcript and wrote a synopsis. and I still don't remember half of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of not much happening.
So, the Enterprise has just rendezvoused with the Repulse to pick up their new doctor. It's important because they are going to be looking at a deadly, deadly plague.
What kind of plague?
This deadly one. I don't know. Something.
It's. I believe they call it a plasma plague, which...
Oh, did they? My God.
I have no idea what that means.
It gets into your blood plasma.
Or ionizes you. One of the two.
The new chief engineer, LaForge, shows up to talk to Riker and Picard about how they are installing individualized stasis cells that they've been working on to carry viral samples in a large containing unit that's going to prevent this deadly, deadly plague from infecting the crew while they're carrying it around.
Oh, that's kind of nice. So are you going to put this crazy storage container within its own force field? Okay, good. Are we going to put it in a environment that can also have another layer of protection on it, like more force fields, or maybe like a large shuttle, perhaps, so that if something goes horribly wrong, we can just sort of open the door and kick it out?
Yeah, you know what they should probably do would be to just you build the thing and then you just tow it behind the damn ship. And then it's in space, and then if something goes wrong, it's out there.
Yes. But I guess they want to be able to like look at it and have a prop, suppose special effects stuff.
So they set course to another planet to collect the samples, and a small ball of light flies into the Enterprise, causing really small power fluctuations that only Data can find. It flies around the ship until it finds a sleeping Deanna Troi and flies into her sheets, and she suddenly wakes up. Slightly disturbing implications of this scene.
Just like, this is a little uncomfortable, Gus. Could you not have stuff like this happen in Star Trek, please?
So Geordi is nearly finished with his preparations on the virus thingy, so Picard wants to go over the details with their new doctor, who's yet to report in. Sickbay tells him that she's in 10 forward, the Enterprise bar that has always been there but no one's ever seen.
Yes. Maybe they were remodeling all of last season.
Picard heads there, and he is pissed because the doctor did not report in for duty.
Yes, it's like, come on, we got some like basic, procedures to go here. What gives?
So Picard's joined by Wesley for some awkward elevator conversation about how Wesley's going to be leaving to join his mother at Starfleet Medical. They're sad, but reassignment is part of Starfleet, etc., etc.
Yeah, Wesley, if you go to the academy, you could end up on any ship in the fleet. So you might not necessarily come back to the Enterprise, even if you do go through the academy and all that. So, this is maybe something to think about.
So they get to 10 forward. It's a massive bar. It's huge. This is bigger than any bar I have ever been to in New York.
It's bar / lounge / set where you can have action scenes occasionally on the ship.
So Guinan points Picard towards Pulaski, sitting by the window with Troy. We've introduced all the main characters, new characters to this point. Good job. Picard's ready to lambaste her, but she interrupts and tells him to sit down and listen because, Troy's got the pregnancy happening.
Dun, dun, dun. So
it's like, you should have reported it. It's something else has come up, dude.
Yeah, there's something like weird going on, and, maybe we should actually deal with this.
So Picard calls a staff meeting to tell everyone Troy is pregnant. It's a weird thing to do, but fine. Pulaski shows some scans of the fetus. Seems to have been conceived about 11 hours ago, but is 6 weeks old.
Now, one of my favorite things about this particular scene is how Picard actually introduces the subject of conversation. It's like she's pregnant. She's going to have a baby. It's like, okay. Is this not something that she should be saying to everyone? Or I know there's weird stuff going on, Captain, but...
Well, no one would have to mention this if it weren't for the whole immaculate conception part of things.
And I've heard folks sort of, make, some fun of this, the scene as well, that, Picard's filled with fear, not because of the weird alien stuff going on, but children. there's going to be another one on the ship.
There's another child. Oh my god. It's lurking. So if this pace of development continues, then the entire pregnancy is going to be over in about 36 hours. And there's no father, just a presence. Everyone panics about the presence. Yes. Worf wants to terminate immediately. It's like, abort the baby. Just go.
Well, he is Worf. Maybe he just wants something to die today because he's bored. This is just a convenient excuse.
I also think it's interesting, even though they don't go with it, can you imagine nowadays a character on a TV show being this for abortion?
It would be unexpected.
This is just like, we should get rid of it. It's a threat. Okay.
Let's have a reasonable conversation, and apparently we are getting all angles of the conversation.
They are. They're like, this thing might be dangerous, or what do we do? This is weird. And then Troy goes, I'm having the baby. And at that point, they just go like, okay, that's it. Discussion over.
Yeah. You have the baby, and then it starts to try to killing us. Then we can deal with it.
Then we have to do something. Yeah.
But until then, I guess have fun being pregnant for like a day and a half.
Yeah. So a few hours later, they arrive at the planet. Troy is now noticeably pregnant, but she has no discomfort of any kind because this alien's making this the easiest pregnancy in all of human history.
Now, I know TV pregnancies could be a little like that sometimes, but come on.
So they contact Lieutenant Commander Delt, who is the medical trustee in charge of the collection station and this whole plague thing.
Gepwin?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Delt here, did he smelt it?
Yes.
Okay.
He smelt the plague.
Sorry, I had to.
So he wants to come look at their containment system personally, because he's good at his job.
Excellent.
Like, if there's a single mistake in this thing, every single person on the ship is going to die.
So, I like and trust your people, but, double checking is a smart thing to do.
So 14 hours later, they are still inspecting the containment system, which I can understand why people would be annoyed by this, but like, please take as much time as you need to make sure not every single person on the ship is going to die.
Especially if you're not going to do one of the plans we mentioned earlier.
So Data heads to sickbay to look over the transporter preparations just in time to find Troy, who is about to go into labor.
Oh, cool. And Data, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, Data gets to be the dad and hold her hand. And Pulaski goes, no, you do not need the cold touch of a machine.
Excuse me? And Troy's like, yeah, he's fine. We're friends. It's all cool.
So Worf shows up with security, but true to everything else that's been going on, the birth is fast and painless. Baby seems to be somehow making things easy. At least they acknowledge that they made it weirdly fast and painless instead of every other TV show in history where it's just like, baby's out.
Yep. There's not, any lengthy dramas. All right, so we got lots of screaming and people rushing around making sure everything is going as it needs to be, everything's prepped, and I'm trying to avoid all the kind of gooey bits here.
I was trained as an EMT at one point. I know intimately all the gooey bits.
Yes, and but this time it's a magic baby with space powers, so it sort of waves its baby arm at the situation and everything's okay.
Yeah. So later on the bridge, Pulaski is explaining that this whole thing was too easy, and if she examined Troy now, there would be no signs that she was ever pregnant at all, at any point.
Wait, did you do a fetal transport?
Yeah, they should be able to do that. Like, there's no reason anyone has to go through this.
Yes.
Like, even the dangers of a C-section seem like they should be done and over at that point.
Yes.
So Picard and Pulaski check in on Troy to see the baby, and they find a 4-year-old who can talk.
Well, that's
don't worry,
creepy.
everything will be okay. It's like, thank you, small demon child.
So, is this one of the children of the damned or children of the corn? We need to figure this out so we can put down the right form.
Children of that damned corn. Later on, the child's about 8, and that's where he's going to stabilize for our purposes. So,
because keep changing out actors, we're going to have to keep paying more people. So,
Yeah. So Data and Pulaski are categorizing the specimens. Several of them have been genetically modified. This is one hell of a plague. Just some dude went, I'm going to make the deadliest plague anyone's ever seen for fun.
As you do, I guess.
Yeah. Like genetically engineering a plague for fun and profit.
And then just sort of adding it to the rest of the plague that they got going on here. That's weird.
She keeps calling data, which I can tell that I had a fun time trying to note that down.
Yes.
When he very politely corrects her, like, I'm sorry, you're using the wrong name for me. You might not have noticed. She goes, what? This is the same thing. What's wrong with you?
Well, would you like me to call you by a different name? Pulaskar, perhaps?
Yeah, fucking turf energy. This is, ugh.
Maybe Katarine?
See, the reason that this dynamic doesn't work is because Data is nice and good-natured the entire time. The McCoy-Spock dynamic, they were both throwing barbs at each other.
Yes.
You cannot have one person be a racist douche and the other person go, maybe you haven't noticed, but you're being a racist douche. And they go, no, screw you.
Spock would have his comebacks, but Data's just like, oh, you just screwed it up. Please don't in the future.
So Pulaski tells everyone that they're ready, but also, if the least deadly thing in here breaches containment, we would all be dead in 6 hours. But, there's nothing better to do, so we may as well carry on.
Yeah. So, don't let the kids play near the deadly virus containment system here, and I guess everything will be fine.
Yeah. So while they beam the samples on board, which takes a long time, Ian gets to go to the puppy room.
There's a puppy room on the Enterprise?
Yes, the Enterprise has a puppy room.
Is there also a kitten complex?
There probably is.
There's getting all sorts of cool stuff on the ship now.
They're just way ahead. This is like peak like R&R for like, are you stressed out by your job? Go to the puppy room.
Hooray! It's like, all right, you want to get drunk? Well, there's a giant bar now. If you want to go hang out and pet puppies, there's a puppy room. If you want to, I don't know, go you hop on a pogo stick through an obstacle course. We got that now too, I guess.
I mean, they do have the holodeck, so.
Yes. But this is specialized. I'm just coming up with it off the fly here, but,
Zero-G pogo stick gym.
Yes.
So Pulaski and Picard come to talk to Ian again in the puppy room, where Picard goes, I have never played with a puppy.
We did not have joy and happiness when I grew up. It is a new thing.
Yeah, he just stares glassy-eyed. It's like, what is this? Don't get it near me. Yeah, Ian's not ready to tell them why he's here yet, but don't worry, it's fine. Don't worry about it. He also burns himself on some soup, probably intentionally, because he wanted to know what it felt like to be burned.
Well, kid, do you think it sucks? If so, don't do it again.
Yeah, this happens. The number of times I impaled myself on a cactus because I was a dumb kid and thought it would be fun to touch a cactus.
Cactus.
This happens. So they're en route to drop off the samples. Wesley's pining in 10 forward because it's time for Guinan to come and give some sage advice, because I love Guinan, and I'm really glad that Whoopi Goldberg got to be on the show. She's one of my favorite characters. They definitely just included a second counselor, though, and gave Troy even less to do.
It's like, oh, we got the counselor who's going to give you various it's nice to be calm and be friendly, and then you got Guinan who's like, yeah, here's how the world works, Huh. So it's different sort of approaches, and for completely different situations, but there's like 80% overlap all the same.
I do love her in this because he's like, aren't you supposed to give me advice? Like, nope. Like, oh, so that is the advice. Don't always do what people expect of you.
Yes.
Like, you gave me advice by not giving me advice. What kind of magic is this?
Meanwhile,
Meanwhile, something's wrong. One of the viruses has started to grow. This is hilarious because my autocorrect apparently decided to take samples and autocorrect it to sesame seeds. So one of the deadly sesame seeds has started to breach containment.
Oh no! They're going to get a hole for our buns soon.
So there's nothing wrong. Nothing's malfunctioning. Everything is great. But it's growing for some reason.
Why?
They can't really destroy it, and if they jettison it, it's just going to float around in space until it hits a planet or something and infects them.
What about
which I guess
phasers?
answers my question about why they don't just leave it dangling out the back of the ship.
Because it might fall off and hit a planet.
Though by the same token, if this thing gets out, then you just have a plague ship floating around.
Yep. So that's also bad.
Which could also just randomly crash into a planet at some point.
Well, maybe there's a plan to self-destruct before everyone was dead.
Maybe. But then how do you know this virus isn't going to survive an antimatter explosion if it apparently can go dormant in space for thousands of years?
Yes. Well, if it is a plasma, as in, ionization all over the place as opposed to plasma as in blood, then you might have to actually worry about that because it's apparently magic.
So they got about 30 minutes until it breaks containment and kills them all.
Ticking clock?
Pulaski checks on the specimen and sees that it was modified using a weird kind of radiation that shouldn't be around, but that low levels of it are causing it to grow. But, nothing on the ship gives off that kind of radiation. It's a strange one that shouldn't exist naturally.
So, what kind of radiation is this?
I wrote down Eichner, I think.
Yes, Eichner radiation. Data specifically mentions certain cyanosylates, which is apparently glue.
Radioactive glue.
Yes, I guess.
So in Troy's quarters, Ian feels that everyone is worried because he's an empath too. He also knows that the reason that they're worried, because of the plague, and it's time for him to go or everyone's going to die. Sorry.
Well, okay, you gotta take a shuttle and fly off into who knows what?
Troy knows, inherently, I guess mother powers, that this means he's going to die and calls Pulaski down immediately.
Well, this kind of sucks.
She and Data arrive. Data identifies Ian as the source of the radiation. Pulaski can't do anything because he's not dying. He's turning back into a light ball.
Well, at least he's going to be, lighting up people's lives.
That's so bad. Troy holds the light ball for a minute and it flies off into space. As soon as he's gone, the specimen goes back to normal. Containment's restored. Everyone's saved. Troy explains that Ian was a space being. He got curious about them, so he decided the best way to learn was to be born and live as a human for a bit. And he didn't think it would put anyone in danger.
Well,
cool.
I guess that's something a space being can do.
Yeah, I guess that kind.
I guess also, begs the question, when this space being meets one of the other random space beings around the universe, do they, just go, hey, what's up? Or do they, try to exist as each other?
Some weird questions. We never run into these things again. These space beings are apparently just everywhere, and they just show up once on one ship and then bugger off forever.
Yeah. I wonder if he ever runs into the folks that are imagination's something we don't have. Or maybe some Organians.
Then you can teach them.
Yeah.
So now everything's settled down. Delt prepares to beam down. He wants to make a vaccine with everything, but still could take years, and all of this could have been for nothing. Bye.
Well, you're welcome.
That's
Thanks,
science
maybe?
for you.
Oh,
But, yeah.
Yeah. It's at least we're giving it a try. I guess that's good enough, right?
Then on the bridge, Wesley tells Picard that he wants to stay. Picard puts it to the crew because, with his mother gone, they'll have to raise him. So Riker's going to see to his upbringing. That'll be fun. It's hey, Riker, here's how to party. Data will see to his studies, which that's interesting, but Data learns things through rote memorization very quickly. Seems like he might not be the best person to teach someone how to study.
That might explain why Wesley starts seeming a bit strung out a little bit later in the series. It's
and Worf will tuck him in at night, so it's settled. And Wesley's staying, so they don't have to get rid of another actor.
All right, well, Yeah, well, I guess that all works out, and we both had another child on the show, and they're gone now too.
Yeah.
And your mom might be gone, kid, but we get to keep you around, and yeah. So all the shuffling is done, and that's an episode.
Off we go.
Yeah.
I could definitely see a version of this where, well, Wheaton had to leave too, and this kid just grows up to be a teenager really fast, and then joins the crew.
It's like, oh yeah, we need a different prodigy child on the ship now, so we'll just grow one.
What's your name? Wesley too? Cool.
I am Wesley Ian Troy.
So the child. What'd you think?
It is a mix of uncomfortable mixed with some good stuff in the transition to a new season, mixed in with a good helping of what?
Yeah, they had some good character stuff, and I actually kind of like Delt, the weird little obsessive, who he's slightly abrasive, but because he's just has to be paranoid all the time because he works with the most deadly disease ever conceived by a man.
It's like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure everything's good to go. You can give me all the confirmations that you did your job right, but just in case, I'm gonna double check it. Sorry. He kind of, in some ways, reminds you of the character Siler from Stargate, who's like, yeah, I got a job to do, and I'm gonna do it. You guys can do it with all the weird space stuff here. I'm just gonna do this thing though, and I'm gonna do it very well.
Yeah, I sit here, I hit this button. This is my function.
Yes. And we're going to have certain mechanical things I work on, and I'm not going to blow smoke up your backside. I'm going to be all about I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it correctly. So yeah. So that was a good character. I hope he comes back. He doesn't, does he?
No.
Alas.
So this episode has been broadly criticized for the whole Immaculate Conception thing.
Yep.
It's a pretty generally agreed on to be a fairly sexist trope that just takes a random woman and impregnates her because it's something that you can do, and then they are fine with it, and then they immediately become angry mom. That's the usual thing here is like, oh, you can't do this with my child that I just randomly had in 2 days because mom instincts.
Yeah, mom instincts are overloading any sense of what the heck's going on here. And, we're just supposed to go with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind that, you've obviously been violated, by the child itself, I guess, which is all sorts of weird. And, there's notions of being confused. There's the whole, waves of hormones probably surging through your body that may be doing all sorts of, push and pull on your emotional states. But apparently it all just averages out to battle mom.
Yeah. A lot of people have described this better, so I'm not going to try to do a deep take here. I believe there's a Tropes versus Women episode about this very thing that mentions this specifically. Yeah. But in general, firstly, this basically utilizes women as a womb to do whatever with. The general thing is almost always non-consensual because it just shows up. In these versions, there's not even an angel that comes down and goes like, hey, don't worry about it, like we have in the Bible.
It's like, all right, so, okay, if you're going to have something like this happen and you want to maybe not just bend the character to go with the trope here, you have the one that enters your body. Okay, fine, that's icky, but but have a whole bunch of other ones just kind of hang out, and like and because she's an empath, she can feel how they're feeling, and they might be worried about the one who's gone on this experience here, but they also are able to communicate that it's going to be okay. We're going to take care of you, and maybe have them be helpful guides through the episode, so that Troy can be all like, the chorus of other beings here are telling me something along this lines here, and I might have my own thoughts and feelings about this, but they seem to be making a compelling argument for us to just let this happen, maybe. And then Picard's like, well, okay, but if there's still a danger to the ship, will still have to act. And maybe the follow up to that is they understand, and that's why they're doing their best to make sure there isn't. And they're also wanting to, then Picard could add, and I also don't want any danger to you. And she can be all like, all right, they've also assured me that. And, I'll let you know, Captain, if there's any, if I feel at all bad about this. And so it stops being this is a weird thing that happened, and there's non-consent, and, everything is just supposed to happen like the trope does. Instead, we actually have a conversation, and sure, there's some still stuff about it, but at least it's being sort of apologized for, and that makes it 20% better, but still terrible.
There's never any discussion dealing with etc. in these things. Mm-hmm. It really just perpetuates the idea that a woman is going to not only want to be a mother under any circumstances, but that is such her core purpose that this is basically a fulfillment of her being. And even with 2 days to deal with the whole suddenly becoming pregnant and mother thing, she just falls directly into, of course, I'm the best mom in the world and I love this child with everything, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. And they did that in this episode in a more insulting way, too, because they want to say, well, this is why we care about this kid who just randomly showed up. But I would also argue that that's insulting to the characters and the audience, because if a random baby just showed up, you would still, I would argue they would have more reason to care about it than this weird non-consensual forced impregnation thing happening.
Yes, I guess a situation similar to what that specific one is when on Voyager, when they pick up the Borg kids, and one of them's a baby, and they kind of forget about that for a little bit, but there's a baby on board now, and they're like, yeah, we're going to take care of it, and make sure it has an opportunity for a full life that it would not have generally had as a just another drone there, and that's something that you can do on an episode of Star Trek, and instead we got this plot.
Mm-hmm. I think you could if you just had a kid show up, then everyone would have a reason to care about them. It would be like a communal, we're all caring about this child thing, and then they'd all have a reason to worry about it when the kid died later. Yeah. Instead, they tried to focus in on, Troy cares about this kid. But they also didn't have anyone particularly arguing against her caring about that kid, so it didn't even have a conflict.
Which I guess is kind of grown up of the rest of everybody. That's like, okay, she wants the kid, so I guess that's good enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do have a pretty shitty thing in the meeting, even when Riker goes who's the father? Oh my god, I'm jealous now.
Riker, calm down. Well, Riker, it's the baby itself. What?
Time travel nonsense,
I'm going to beat up this baby. You're going to name them Dave Lister, aren't you? Are you familiar with that whole plot on Red Dwarf?
Yeah, I remember that bit. General time travel shenanigans.
Yes.
So, that trope's awful. They don't do a lot of other interesting things with this episode generally. I think this was pointed out to me. It's not my original thought, as much as I would like it to be. But the most interesting thing with this that I could think of at all is that this child, this way of reproducing or gaining the experiences or whatever for what's happening on the ship, is essentially a brood parasite.
Kind of, yeah.
So, for people who don't know the biology stuff, brood parasitism is something that happens in birds. At least it's well studied in birds. I can't say for sure whether it happens in other egg-laying species or not, but it definitely happens in birds, where a member of a different species, or sometimes the same species, especially with like waterfowl, this happens a lot, will lay its eggs in another bird's nest and then leave the egg there to be cared for by the other parents.
It's like, I don't got time to take care of this kid. You have it, and you won't notice.
And of course, the most famous example of this that everyone knows is the cuckoo, which also not all species of cuckoo do this. It's actually a very small selection of the species of cuckoos, but it got very famous. So cuckoos will lay their eggs in other birds' nests, and then those birds will take care of them. The main thing that people don't like about this, but people think of the first thing they get when they hear brood parasite, is that in different species, a lot of brood parasiting species, the newly hatched brood parasite chick will destroy the other eggs, or in some cases kill the other existing chicks. That is something that definitely can happen, but not always, because there are in fact some instances where, like, there was a really interesting study where crows that get parasitized by a kind of cuckoo chick have actually a higher nest success rate than other crows, because the cuckoo chick can emit a foul-smelling substance that wards off predators. So it actually protects the nest that it's in, and that way the other crow babies have a better chance of not being predated on.
Yeah, so Mr. Snake there, or Hawk there, and they're like, we're looking for something here, but this stinks, so we're going to avoid it. So we're going to go eat somebody else now.
Yeah, so in some cases, it's not always completely negative. In a lot of cases, they just take up the resources from the bird, and they don't necessarily kill the other chicks. They all just live next to each other. You see pictures, which are kind of ridiculous, of a, like, cuckoo teenager, which is 3 times the size of the bird that it's parasitized, being fed by this tiny little parent.
It's like, you got so big. What's up?
But I also thought it was interesting, because I've been looking at stuff from this. There's different ways that the birds try to defend against brood parasitism. Because everyone has this thing. It's like, oh, well, the brood parasites come in and they're evil. Cuckoos get kind of a bad reputation. But this happens on both sides. It's more of a evolutionary war happening. Like,
folks don't often realize that there are conflicts going on evolutionary timescales, where one species, adapts something, and then another one sort of counter adapts in order to sort of maintain their niche and general success as a species.
Now, there's birds called masked weaver birds. Weaver birds, as the name would imply, build very complex woven nest structures. And the masked weaver birds build ridiculously tiny nest entrances that trap the cuckoos when they try to come in to parasitize.
You're trapped now.
And then, of course, being birds, they rip the cuckoo apart with their beaks. Because birds are all angry little buggers.
Yes. Yeah, we got only a couple weapons here, and by gosh, we're going to use them. So prepare to be pecked, nipped, and pulled.
There's also some finch chicks have very, very weirdly complex patterns on the inside of their mouths, which apparently evolved completely independently in a lot of different finch species, like independent of brood parasitism, whether this species is parasitized or not. But an upshot of whatever these markings were initially for is that the brood parasites don't have them. So it's very easy for a finch to identify which chicks are their natural born chicks and not.
All right, everybody open your mouth. Okay, good. Oh no.
And if you look at pictures of these things, some of them are like fluorescent. They like concentrate and reflect light in this really, really bright blue pattern. It's insane. Also on this, my favorite is there's a species of goldfinch, an American goldfinch, that is one of the most herbivorous birds. A lot of birds will eat some insects or opportunistically eat meat when available.
Yes.
This is not the only species that does this, but this goldfinch is one of the most herbivore birds, to the extent that it feeds its chicks an exclusively seed diet, which is very, very unusual for birds. Most birds feed their babies insects, even if they are normally herbivores.
Yes. So we're going to get you
upshot-
protein.
The upshot of this is that brood parasites cannot survive on that diet.
Oh, you want some bugs? Well, too bad.
Now, what I think could be interesting, there's another one that I'm going to get into in a sec, but what could be interesting is if you actually did this as the sci-fi episode. This kid could just show up, you raise the kid for a certain amount of time, eventually it just like goes, okay, thank you, and moves on. Another ship shows up, maybe with people from like all kinds of different cultures and things, and the kid like just gets taken onto the ship. Because there's an interesting case where they found that certain songbirds, certain songbird parasites, will learn the parents' song in addition to the song that they would naturally learn to identify themselves to each other. And then they also incorporate that song into their own courtship rituals.
Interesting.
So it would be really, really interesting to have a sci-fi version of this where the kid just shows up, and then at the end, they get taken in by their, parent species that just dropped them off there to be raised. And one of the upshots of this is that they just keep incorporating different parts of different cultures because all their kids get raised in a radically different culture, and then they just form this weird amalgamation of every culture in the system.
That'd be kind of neat, especially in a franchise like Star Trek, where there is so many recognizable cultures of various sorts that having a situation where there is a legit mishmash of all of them together would be kind of fun to see.
Yeah, and you could have it be a mirror of the Federation, like, they explore by having their children raised in different places.
Yeah.
You could have, like, Worf comments like, the Klingons have legends of this. You must kill the child immediately.
It was said that once they managed to have one survive and escape to their, city ships, and soon they made war upon the entire galaxy for 3 generations.
They're like, this Klingon stuff's cool.
Go around to stab people? Neat.
Yeah, and later it wouldn't come up. It's like that's why they don't go to these warlike cultures anymore.
Yeah,
it wasn't that you kicked us out. We're like, this is a bad idea. No.
We just start getting all violent, and nobody likes that. So, how about that miraculous birth situation?
Yeah, happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like this one time, there was like this emperor that was born apparently in China. His mom Fu Bao just like going on a walk, and suddenly there's a lightning bolt that came out of the Big Dipper, and she was pregnant. Apparently.
Yeah. Happens in China. Happened in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Mm-hmm.
Happens in different things. It's just...
Yeah, I didn't look through all the Egyptian weird birth situations, but they have plenty of them, and I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of them was, and then just suddenly we just had a kid. It wasn't any, no dad, just happened.
I'm not going to get into the religious arguments, but of course everyone goes Immaculate Conception thinks of Christianity. It's the most famous example in modern times, near modern times.
It's a sign that your birth is special, and thus you are a special person.
Yeah. It's been a staple in human stories for millennia. But also something that I always found interesting, and something that I don't think that doesn't really get talked about when these things get brought up, is everyone thinks of the biblical stuff as like, even if there were other stories, they're all kind of connected. This is something that is in all of these old documents. But Immaculate Conceptions were recognized by the church for hundreds of years. Yep. Like, this was something that happened to nuns a lot.
It's like, this nun is obviously a godly lady, and she's, kept herself pure. So obviously, Jesus was involved somehow. There you go.
Yeah. Like there's obvious conclusions one can draw from this, but I think it's part of church history, and especially Christianity, that doesn't get talked about very much because this is something that keeps coming up if you look into historical records. The Immaculate Conception is just a thing that happens in the church for hundreds of years. We don't really have it as an explanation for stuff now. But everyone talks about it like it's just the one special thing that happened one time. But it was happening for hundreds of years.
And, by happening for hundreds of years, it's probably, cases of, they did actually have sex at some point.
Probably, but not according to the church. So
yes. So, it's sort of one of those, we're kind of putting a spin on the situation and, just don't worry about it, guys.
As someone who's not religious, it's easy to poke fun at stuff, but if this is something that is recognized by the church in different things, maybe there was something else that made the one guy special, this message of not being mean to each other or something.
Yeah. And so we got maybe some miraculous stuff going on there, sure, but maybe there was important stuff that we should actually paying attention to. So if we only talk about the one thing, maybe it'll be like, okay, so magic person, I guess. But if we also spread the word, then we can have the magic person and a whole faith based around it.
Yeah. Could be. There's so much stuff I don't want to get into a rant. There's just so much stuff recently that keeps reminding me. It's people have not actually read the book that all this stuff is based on, and people certainly are not incorporating the message into their own belief system, or they would not be doing most of this stuff.
Yes. It's so how about that love thy neighbor stuff,
Yeah. None of the love your neighbor, the sick and the infirm and the poor are the most important people. Rich people suck. And look at these priests in their finery strutting around like they own the place.
Yeah, maybe a mega church is perhaps not the best place to be worshiping a religion that has lots of messages about be good to the poor and stuff, and don't try to put yourself on a giant pedestal.
Collecting interests from loans is a sin.
Yes. Ye old usury. But
don't wear mixed fiber clothing. Stop shaving.
But there's a lot of stuff in religions that folks seem happy to conveniently forget if it'll conflict with their, I guess, effectively adopted culture at the time. So I guess that's maybe something we should be expecting, but still, it's annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, another miraculous birth is, of course, Kabir, a poet from the 1400s. Was apparently born of a virgin widow, and then was, dropped into a basket, sent down the river sort of situation.
One of those.
Another one is, of course, our old buddy Merlin, who was, apparently his mom was one of those nuns you mentioned. There may have been an incubus involved somewhere, but, that's still, special.
That's fun. Depending on which version of that you're going with, that must have been a pretty early nun, given the Roman influences.
Yes. Yeah, and I lost track of it, but there was a couple, Aztec, I think it was, sort of related things there. But I don't know. I can look it up later. It was Quetzalcoatl, our old friend Kukulkan, was apparently born to a virgin.
Mm-hmm. Also, technically, most Greek gods.
Yeah.
Because they were all born from Zeus's forehead.
It's like, there's another one popping out of my forehead. It's like zits. I thought that cream was going to help.
Born of migraine is the story I remember.
Of course, there is, in various religions and myths, other forms of miraculous births, of course. Some of them get a little graphic, so, I'm not going to go into them here. But, there's still a lot of ways you could sort of change up the special birth sort of stories, and get something at the variant that maybe you don't expect.
Hmm.
And going back to the Egyptians, it also often involves siblings, so be careful about that.
I think we've plumbed this well a bit, so to speak.
I guess I could also talk about the history of abortion, but we're running a little out of time.
Well, they didn't actually do that in this episode. So.
Nope. Was brought up, so I was ready just in case.
Okay, before we get into that and really get canceled, let's continue on with the Galaxy's favorite game show.
Woohoo! Hey everybody, welcome to the Galaxy's favorite game show. Our various contestants here, while not being floating energy beings, have been racking up lots of points here, and we're about ready to hand out some prizes. Our first one today is the Space Baby Prize, which goes to Ian for being all a baby in need of a mom and coming in from outer space and stuff, but also being kind of radioactive, I guess. What does Ian win, Gepwin?
Ian wins a 90s sitcom, because that's just space baby lands, people have to take care of the radioactive baby, there's hijinks. This just seems like a 90s show to me.
I wonder if they'll have a crossover with that one with the chimp with Gordy, right?
Yeah. Chimp and space baby.
Yes. Our second prize we're handing out here is the Android Dad Prize, which goes to Data for clearly being excited for Troy giving birth. He's all smiles and wonder and stuff. What does Data win? Or as Pulaski would say, Dada.
Data wins endless years of correcting the child with his name. Dada. No, Data. Dada.
Dada. Dada. Daddy. Dada. Daddy. Yes. Yeah. It's perhaps a good thing Ian decided to give up on existing for Data's sake. Anyway, the last thing is the What Were They Thinking Prize, which goes to the writers on this one, because jeepers, can we get away from this trope forever and bury it and stuff, please? What do they win, Gepwin?
They win what I'm surprised even modern writers don't have is reading TV tropes. It's all categorized and written down now. It's not difficult to do any research at all.
Indeed.
I'm not exactly criticizing them for not doing research in the 90s before the internet was fully a thing, but this was the 80s even. But now you don't have any excuse at all. Not even a thin veneer of one. So just stop it.
Indeed. So I guess maybe a important thing for all our present and future writers is to check out TV tropes and identify all the tropes that kind of suck. This one. That's all we got today, Gepwin. Feel free to take us away or turn us into energy beings or have us die of plasma plague. I don't really care which one at the moment.
Yes, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you don't die and become an energy ball too quickly. And I hope you'll be here next time for the Galaxy's favorite game show! Woo! Next time we get, we've gone from Magic Space Baby to Magic Space Baby Face.
So you're saying that we're going to have some sort of face on the view screen, eh?
Yeah, one of those face things.
A giant floating head, as it were.
Quiet. Yeah, not quite yet. We haven't quite gotten the giant floating head.
Well, it is still going to be a little creepy having it look at us like that. Hopefully we don't also get trapped in an infinite void of darkness.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up. So next time is the episode where silence has lease. Which, it's another one of these. They've really front loaded this thing with these sort of nothing-ish episodes. Not a lot's going on. It's kind of not interesting. They don't explore much. Kind of dull.
I guess this next one at least sort of shows off how Picard deals with, all-powerful beings that are not Q.
Yeah.
Yeah, because with Q, he's like, I can kind of goad you occasionally because you kind of have this, personality I can manipulate. But this one's like, I'm just a dick. Mm-hmm. Picard's like, well, in that case, no.
It does sort of start their trope, vastly expanded by Star Trek Voyager, of when in doubt, blow the ship up.
Yes. The Janeway Pie maneuver, if I recall some folks call it.
Yes.
I'm also looking forward to the lengthy career of our friend Haskell as that kicks off in this next episode here. And I'm hoping for good things for him in the long run, and maybe he'll even lead some of the Star Trek movies down the road. Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah,
the famous Haskell, who is, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for this, is marked as played by page does not exist.
Whoops. But there's going to be some stuff going on next time, and this next episode's also not kind to Worf.
No. Yeah, there will be stuff. There will be things. Yes. Some of it will be real. Will you know what it is? Ooh. Anyway, yeah. I hope that you will be here next time for Giant Space Baby Face in the void of eternal night.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Giant Floating FaceTime. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.